Thanks so much. A pleasure to be here to tell you a little bit more about genetic signatures. We're a molecular diagnostic company. We're 22 years old and we're focused on the better detection of infectious diseases. Why infectious diseases? Because they're a leading cause of death. But inherently, they're preventable deaths. If you had tools that are better able to detect the infection, you'd be more rapidly able to commence treatment or isolation as appropriate. So we know that one class of bacteria causes 10 deaths per minute globally. So before I'm kicked off the stage, that's almost 150 deaths around the planet just from an infectious agent. So how we do it? We do it through a patented technology developed here in Australia. It's called 3-base, and really it's designed to make organisms more similar to each other. It makes them easier to detect, and the technology itself is inherently able to detect even when there are mutations or variants in the organisms that we're trying to detect. So many of you would have heard about the SARS-CoV-2 COVID variants. Our technology is really able to overcome those genetic changes. So it is an investment conference, so the investment highlights are that we do have a proprietary technology. It's unique to us. No other molecular diagnostic company in the world can use this. It's protected with multiple patents. As I said, it simplifies the detection of these infectious agents, and from a single sample, we're able to detect multiple targets. It's what we call multiplexing. We can detect more with fewer reagents. We have had strong commercial adoption. As I said, we're over 20 years old. We've been in the Australian market for some time, but we're expanding now into those bigger markets of Europe and the US. We already have 4 diagnostic test groups cleared in some jurisdictions. There are 5 more coming. We're expanding our distributor network, and importantly, we're about to submit our first application in the US. We have had strong underlying growth in our revenue, 17 million last year, and 75% of that revenue was from our syndromic test kits, not COVID testing kits. We did benefit from COVID, but we existed a long time before COVID and did this many years and a decade before anyone had even heard about COVID. So in terms of an investment, we do have multiple drivers for growth. The commercial expansion is one, going from a jurisdiction that's 1 to 2% of the world market into Europe and the US to combine, which is 75% of the global market. We have new products coming through the pipeline. They all work in exactly the same way, so we're able to leverage our customer base with new products, and we also develop instrumentation, which again embeds our 3-base technology into the labs. So a very quick snapshot of the company, market cap of 87 million, which for a global supplier of molecular diagnostics is perhaps on the low side. It might be why there's been some recent research. It's on our website. Some of those have target prices of over $2. In terms of shareholders, Chris Abbott of Maple Brown Abbott, which many of you would know or know of, owns about a quarter of the company, just given that he was a founder of the company and financed us single-handedly for 16 years before listing. But very happy to have support of Perennial, Fidelity, Thorney, and others on the register. So I talked about our technology. It's something we're very proud of. They tell me I shouldn't talk about technology at these kind of conferences, but as I say, it is unique to us. And if you will indulge me for a minute, I would love to tell you about it, because I'm sure you know about DNA, and it has 4 letters in its alphabet. It's A, C, G, and T. That's the 4-letter alphabet. What you may not know is that the C letter is pretty unstable. It often mutates and changes to that T letter. So in nature, you see a lot of those changes. In fact, in SARS-CoV-2, in some areas, 90% of the mutants are C to T. So our scientists thought, what would happen if we could force that change? So we'll just change every C to a T. And this is a real example here. This is human papillomavirus. It causes cervical cancer. And these are just 3 variants of human papilloma, a very small part of the genome. This one up here has 2 Cs, the one in the middle. They've all converted to the T letter. This bottom one has 1 T letter, 1 is still a C letter. So once we do our 3-base conversion, they're all identical. So we're able to detect all 3 of these with one test, if you like. So it's another way, if you're not familiar with DNA, is just spelling, US spelling, Australian spelling. We often use an S, and those in North America use the Z or the Z. The word realise, if we could change the S or the Z to an S and did a word search, we'd be able to pick up both variants of that word, rather than having to search for both variants separately. So I hope that was clear. I say we've been well adopted. I am a scientist, so I do like to evidence a lot of things. Before I do that, I'll just tell you the type of tests that we make and then show you how the market adoption that we've had. So hopefully with the tech you could see that we're able to detect groups of organisms quite simply, and it lends itself to what we call this syndromic testing or multiplex testing. So unfortunately we're all familiar with the symptoms of gastroenteritis or respiratory illness, the causes of which are many, and what our testing strategy allows us to do is look for all of the potential causes or most of the potential causes in effectively one sample. So if for respiratory illness, we can look for the top 15 causes. Yes, it will include SARS-CoV-2, it will also include flu A, flu B, but there are many more that can cause exactly the same symptoms. So Genetic Signatures has developed well over 100 tests. We're able to combine these in different ways, which allow us to put out what we call syndromic test kits. So we sell these to pathology labs, they're our customer, and they use this every day on every specimen that comes into their lab. So we don't do the testing, we're simply a medical device supplier. So in terms of evidence, there's nothing better than revenue to show what your uptake has been. This is showing our most recent year compared to the 4 years prior to that. We did have a win with COVID, there's no question, but what we were able to do is leverage that opportunity to expand our customer base. And really there's only two things I want you to take away from this. One is that this revenue of this financial year has been predominantly our syndromic test kits. There's very little COVID-only testing in that. In fact, 80% of our last quarter was all syndromic test kits. The other part I want you to take away is an underlying growth of our core business. So it's not like we had a sugar hit with COVID and went back to where we were in 2019. So they're two very important things which really sets us up for success. And as I said, I do like to evidence most things I say, and this is the fairest way I thought I could evidence this, is just to show what did the half year before COVID look like compared to the equivalent half year of the year just past. And you can see there's a 61% growth rate. And that really speaks to our ability how we leverage the COVID opportunity for a company like us. So we did expand into Europe, we did expand into labs that we weren't into in Australia, and then transitioned them into this syndromic testing or multiplex testing. In terms of product mix, these are the last 8 quarters. COVID-only sales are in light blue, our syndromic test kits are in dark blue, and I think it's quite easy to see here that COVID-only sales are really a very small percentage of our sales at the moment. So we're back to core business and making and selling these kits which can detect a large number of organisms, as I say, in effectively the one test, the one patient sample. We're excited for a number of reasons, really because the majority of our revenue came from tests that can pick up respiratory or gastrointestinal infections. But we have a lot of kits coming through the development pathway. They all work in exactly the same way. I mentioned hardware, they all work on exactly the same equipment. So when we do release a new test, existing customers are very likely to adopt them. You can see here most of our regulatory clearances are in, well, all of them are in Europe and Australia. The US is the biggest market in the world. It speaks for maybe 40%. And we have our first product that has finished clinical trial, and we're just putting the finishing touches on the application before we submit to the FDA for clearance for sale. And I would like to spend a couple of minutes just talking about that because it's an incredible opportunity for our company. So we did identify an unmet need in the US, and this is looking at stomach bugs, or in particular stomach parasites, Giardia, Cryptosporidium, etc. The traditional way of doing this test is to look down a microscope, and you need to spot the protozoan cysts The test takes more than a week to report. The reimbursement rate in the US is in the tens of dollars, and it's incredibly inaccurate, 50% sensitivity. So it's like flipping a coin. You don't actually need to do the test. So a lot of infections are missed. We're coming to market with a molecular test that picks up 8 of the most common gastrointestinal parasites. It's done in a day, results can be reported the same day, and the reimbursement code for the lab is $260 US. So it's a very different way of approaching these gastrointestinal parasites. And that's why we're excited. That's why we're excited that we finished our clinical trial and just preparing for submission now. In terms of market preparation, we do have webinars, key opinion leaders on our website. We have a direct sales and marketing team in the US. We have warehousing in the US. Effectively, we're ready to go. So I think I've covered most of this, is that we're ready to go, but it's just that the final reports are really being written now, and then we file the application. The FDA say they need 90 days for review, so we anticipate being in the US market very, very soon. We're not stopping there. The next product for the US is already in clinical trial. It's for respiratory infections. This is a much quicker trial because we have a predicate device that has all of our targets. We're already 80% complete in that trial. So we're very much looking forward to having our 3rd and 4th cleared tests in the US. I did concentrate on the US, but we are in Europe as well. We've made some recent hires. The most important is expanding our distributor base. In Europe, we've just appointed, EMEA, we've just appointed 2 distributors to cover off the Middle East and Israel. We're at the biggest trade shows, as you might imagine, with big, beautiful displays. It's a pleasure to be at and represent this Australian company. So in terms of growth initiatives, we've done very well in our home base. It's to leverage that experience into Europe and into the US. It's to build and expand our product base. That's our revenue-generating medical device. I haven't gone into the pathway, but it's extensive. It's to embed our 3-base technology into their workflow. Once they do 3-base, once 3-base is in their lab, every sample gets used with our test. And as I said, any new test, the uptake is really quite high because they're already trained. They all work in exactly the same way. I haven't had a chance to go into instrumentation, but a very big investment for the company is a next generation sample to result instrument. Literally put a clinical sample in one end. It will do 3-base conversion, purify, amplify, report the results to the hospital system. And we should have our first alpha prototype of that in February of next year. So the upcoming milestones are pretty obvious, as given what I've said. The US filing is key. It's imminent. We're very excited by that. We're increasing the sales and presence into Europe, the Middle East, and distributors being appointed, as I said. Finishing the trial for the 2nd product and then letting the market know what our 3rd and 4th products are. And continue to invest in our R&D. We are, at the end of the day, a technology company. We believe our technology can help in many areas. We're focused on infectious diseases. And once we're able to develop an instrument, I think really many labs would welcome this 3-base technology. So I didn't see you giving me a 2-minute, but I'm done.
Is there anyone wanted to ask a question at all?